Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to avoid burnout and fatigue in your Hyrox training. Now, overtraining and under-recovering is prevalent amongst a lot of athletes in Hyrox. With so many aspects of training to do, it can be so easy to just overdo it and not get enough recovery in between your sessions. Even myself, for example, about a year ago, I raced in Birmingham. I went into that race overcooked and tired. I'd simply done too much in my training and I missed my goal time by over 5 minutes. Safe to say, I was extremely disappointed. I came away having learned quite a lot from that training block. Since then, I've managed to knock off minutes off my time and I'm really looking forward to the next lot of races at the start of this season. And today, I'm going to show you the top 3 tips to use in your training to avoid burnout and fatigue like I've done. First though, it's time to go to the gym because I've got today's session to do. Today, I've got a lower body strength session. So the first tip to avoiding burnout and fatigue is to alternate your week between easy days and hard days. This might sound quite obvious, but you'll be surprised how easy it is to fall into the trap of thinking every single session has to be moderate to hard intensity. Alternating between easy days and hard days just allows your body time to recover from the hard session and then create the adaptation provided from the stimulus created in that hard session. So I've just got back from doing my low body strength session. I would consider this an easy day. Hard days should be defined as sessions that leave you feeling really run down afterwards. I'm not talking about muscular soreness, I'm talking about total full body fatigue. In other words, central nervous system fatigue. These are the sessions where afterwards you might feel a little bit tired, less powerful, less energetic, perhaps you feel a little bit more hungry afterwards, or you might need a bit more sleep that night, those kind of things. So that strength session I would consider an easy session, and I'll put my heart rate up on the screen now throughout that session. As you can see, it didn't get that high. Therefore, I wouldn't necessarily consider this a hard session. Tomorrow, however, I have got a threshold run session. This is what I would consider a hard session, and I'll show you my heart rate when we get to it tomorrow. Therefore, every single day, I alternate between doing an easy day and a hard day. This is just going to make sure that I'm recovering enough, and when I do get to my hard session, I actually feel up and motivated to train. So, as I said, yesterday was an easy session. Today, therefore, it's a hard session, and it looks pretty hard. It's a threshold run session, a 15-minute warm-up, 4 lots of 20-second stride, just to get warmed up even more. Then 6 rounds of 3 minutes at threshold pace. For me, it'll be around 350 per kilometre, 1 minute 30 easy, and then to finish with 5 lots of 20-second stride again, 40 seconds slow, 5-minute cool down. So pretty intense. Should be sort of working around threshold, zone 4, maybe touching zone 5 on some of the strides. See how we get on. So threshold session done, and it was a pretty hard session. I'll put my heart rate up on the screen now so you can see how much harder I was actually working in that session compared to my strength session. Therefore, as you can see, easy day yesterday, hard day today, but because yesterday was easy, I was able to attack today relatively hard. I'll tell you something though, that session felt so much easier because I was wearing one of these. First time trialing a nasal strip, and honestly, absolutely changed my performance there. I can only describe it as, imagine you've had a blocked nose for weeks and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's clear and you honestly feel like you can breathe again. That's what it felt like. I could just get way more oxygen in. The hard efforts felt so much easier and it genuinely just felt like I was working at a much lower rate of exertion. Big game changer these. Might trial them in a bit of a Hyrox simulation session at one point and see how I get on. Potentially wear one on race day. Anyway, time to go home, get some lunch, and then give you point number 2 on how to avoid burnout and fatigue in your Hyrox training. Now, my second tip to avoiding burnout and fatigue is to properly apply progressive overload specific to you. Emphasize the way I say specific to you. when you take a look at some of the training volume that some of the elite athletes are doing, it can be quite surprising. Some of them are running north of 100 kilometers a week, doing 4 strength sessions, 2 Hyrox sessions, and on top of that, they're doing tons and tons of easy zone 2 work. Then it's also easy to look at these athletes, realize how well they're doing, and think, I need to do that in order to get to where they are. But you have to look at where you are currently. Trying to match what the elite athletes are doing is only going to cause burnout and fatigue and probably even injury. I made this mistake myself. As I said earlier, when I was training for Birmingham last year, ramped up my training volume too much, too fast. I couldn't recover between sessions. I was constantly getting little niggles and pains, and I just wasn't seeing the progress that I wanted. You need to take a look at where you're currently at in your training now and apply the 10% rule. Basically means we only increase training volume by 10% maximum. So in the threshold session I've just done, I did about 13 kilometers of distance in total. I didn't just reach this distance at the start. In fact, when I started doing some of these sessions, I was only reaching about 6 or 7K. I've gradually built up my training to get to the point now where I can handle much greater volumes of training. My body has gradually adapted to the demands imposed upon it, and I can therefore cope with running this far and not get any pains or injuries. So you need to take a look at where you're currently at in your training. Be very, very sensible with how much you progressively overload your volume and your intensity, and make sure you're not ramping it up too quickly. Another note is that every sort of 6 to 8 weeks, I'd actually recommend having a bit of a deload week where you pull back on your training volume and intensity slightly, just to make sure you get enough recovery in, and almost look at it as a deload to then reload. You can then go a bit harder and do a bit more the following weeks to come. Hyrox session of the week done. It was a big one. It was 2 rounds of 700 meter run, 700 ski, 700 meter run, 30 meter sled push, 700 meter run, 30 meter burpee broad jumps, 700 meter run, 60 meter walking lunges, 700 meter run, 90-second walking recovery. 2 rounds of that took me about 50 minutes, and then to finish with 100 wall balls for time. I've been doing them with the 12 kg all summer in the hope that come race day, the 9 kg feels a lot easier. Big session, big calorie burn. I'll put the stats up on the screen now, but I felt pretty good throughout, and that is because of my 3rd tip on how to avoid burnout fatigue in your Hyrox training. And my last tip on avoiding burnout fatigue in your Hyrox training is on nutrition. Make sure you are fueling your performance. Going back to my Birmingham prep last year, not only was I potentially overtraining, but I was definitely underfueling. But what this meant was I was going into pretty much all of my training sessions feeling lackluster, lacking energy, lacking motivation, just not feeling up for it. I'll never forget on race day, my girlfriend turned to me and said, "You just don't seem like you're up for racing today." And she was right. I simply didn't have enough energy within me. I'd burnt too much, therefore I was feeling very burnt out, very fatigued. In order to improve our Hyrox performance, we need to be able to get the most out of our training. This is where the gains are made, both in strength and in our running. And the only way we can get the most out of our training, making sure they're actually fueling up for it. It's not uncommon for me to burn north of 800, even 1,000 calories on some of these long run sessions and these Hyrox sessions. Not only do I need to make sure I'm fueling up beforehand, I also need to make sure I'm fueling up afterwards in order to help with the recovery process. And another note on this is to make sure you're eating enough carbohydrates. Remember, a lot of these sessions, and especially the Hyrox race itself, is going to be in that higher intensity zones. And in those zones, our preferred source of fuel is going to be stored carbohydrates. Reducing your carbohydrate intake is not a smart idea. It will mean that you won't have as much energy for these sessions, you won't be recovering as well, and you're just going to find it tough to get the most out of your sessions. So the last tip is make sure that you're fueling your performance. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in a future video, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.